You're listening to a GWP weather update. It's Saturday, January 24th, and I am one of the hosts here of GWP, Jacob Fulmer, bringing you another update here on this weekend's winter storm that is moving across the country. So we'll go ahead and we will take a look at kind of where we're at since we're in the middle of the storm here. We'll go ahead and we'll update that here. Um, National Weather Service, of course, providing these national weather alerts that we are dealing with here at this point in time. Of course, we've still got those ice storm warnings. The ice storm warnings were extended into central Texas. That includes Austin. So that area is being affected by up to a half an inch of ice through tomorrow morning. We've got additional ice warnings across eastern Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. We've got Georgia into the Carolinas. Those have been expanded since yesterday. So we could be looking at over an inch of ice across this area. These purple areas, that is where we're most concerned about accumulating ice, as well as the concern for some power outages and travel disruptions. So we've got some concerns with that. Of course, we've got the winter storm warnings here across Missouri in the area that we cover here on GWP. We've got winter storm warnings extending into the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, into the New England states. So pretty much anywhere east of the Rockies, we've got winter weather alerts. We even have cold or extreme cold watches in the panhandle of Florida. So even Florida is going to get involved in some of this colder air that's going to be plunging its way all the way to the Texas-Mexican border. We've also got the extreme cold warnings. Again, as we mentioned, the cold is going to be a big part of this, and then those cold weather advisories. A few of those have been dropped, like in Iowa. We don't have those anymore. So there's another side of the storm that we haven't really talked about, and that is the possibility for severe thunderstorms. I know it's very surprising to think that we would have severe thunderstorms, but as you can see, the Storm Prediction Center has outlined an area across Florida, Alabama, and Georgia for the possibility of some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. So scattered severe thunderstorms are possible. This was from the National Weather Service forecast office in Tallahassee, Florida. And so not necessarily dealing with wintry weather, but instead looking at the risk for 60-mile-per-hour winds, maybe even a few isolated tornadoes. It looks like that this is going to happen midday on Sunday, so Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. The squall line is expected to develop across this area, and we could be looking at some severe weather. So, just a perfect example that this storm has many, many impacts. And so that's certainly something to notice here. Of course, the National Weather Service office here. There it is in Kansas City and Pleasant Hill, predicting additional snowfall along Interstate 70 and points south, even a little bit of lighter accumulations further to the north. Springfield, same thing, totals a little bit higher. National Weather Service there in Springfield, Missouri, also predicting that. We've also still got those winter storm warnings, as we mentioned. The heaviest snowfall, at least for southwestern Missouri, is going to occur between around 9 o'clock tonight and 6 to 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. We're still going to have some light snow in the midday, maybe even into the early afternoon hours. Some light snow showers or flurries are going to be possible, but the majority of the heaviest snowfall is going to take place during this window, particularly between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. That's where we're expecting very heavy snowfall. We could even be dealing with snowfall rates at up to 1 to 2 inches per hour. So we have some snow coming down across the state of Missouri. In fact, we'll show you that here. So this is the National Weather Service radar. That's where we're getting these graphics from. You can see that we've got a heavier band of snow. It looks like you notice that it's green, and so normally we associate green with rain. Remember, this is all kinds of precipitation. So this radar also picks up on rain. It shows it as the same color. It's more of a precipitation type deal. And so that's what this is showing. And so you can see where some of those heavier bands are setting up just to the east of Nevada, in between El Dorado Springs and Wabalo. That's where we have some heavier snow. Then you can go northward. We've got some additional heavy snowfall just to the northwest of Warsaw, west of US 65. That's going south of Sedalia. We've got some heavier snow. It looks like we've got heavier snow across Jefferson City, out to the west towards California, Missouri, of course, what we're talking about. Here where I'm at in Columbia, of course, with the University of Missouri, we're still getting some pretty moderate snow. I'm looking outside, and This appears to be the heaviest snow that we've had all day at this point in time. And so it's going to accumulate a lot quicker than it has beforehand. And then we've got some snow across Nevada as well, one heavy band just to the north there in Joplin. And then it looks like the heaviest precipitation is in Arkansas, but still going to get some heavier bands of snow through the rest of tonight. Of course, we're concerned about power outages. We've talked about that, particularly with that ice threat to our south. Texas and Louisiana both have the most power outages. Louisiana leading the way at 57,000 customers without power. We are lucky enough here, and again, you can find this on poweroutage.com is where I'm getting this information from, so you can view these graphics here. But you'll notice that at least as of right now, we don't have a whole lot of power outages across Missouri. Part of that is because this is all snow, and so that obviously helps us out here. No customers without power in Boone County, which again is to be expected. Vernon County doing pretty good, Barton County, Jasper County, Cedar County, Hickory County, Camden County, Miller County. I mean, pretty much just about, it looks like we've got a few in Cole County. So around the Jefferson City area, we've got a few power outages, but those are really, I mean, that's about how many we have on a normal day. So that's not really a big deal. Of course, we can also check MoDot here. So you can find this at traveler.modot.org/map/. That's where you can find current road conditions across the state of Missouri. And you'll notice when we look at that legend that pretty much all the roads, in fact, I don't see a single road that's not in the partly covered, covered, or closed. Every one of them are somewhere in those three. We don't have a mostly clear highway anywhere in the state of Missouri, according to MoDOT at this point in time, based on their map. Of course, St. Louis, uh, pretty much covered at this point, just about entirely covered. We've got a few roadways that have even been shut down, as you'll notice, a few highways. Those are kind of more rural county roads. Those have shut down. We've got a few more road closures just to the west of Columbia. Let's see, we've got a highway. Well, the color's kind of covering up. I can't quite tell what highway we got there. We've got totally covered roads across Interstate 49, 43, US 54 is totally covered, 65 is covered. A few roads are just mostly covered across the Kansas City metro area. But again, it's going to be harder for these road crews to keep up just because we're dealing with such heavy snowfall rates throughout the evening hours. Again, today, it hasn't really accumulated too much, but the majority of our accumulation is going to take place in the next 12 hours. And so it may not seem like we've had as much snow as what originally was forecasted. That's part of the reason is we're just now getting into the bulk of the activity here. And so we'll show you this is from tropicaltidbits.com. We've got the GFS 18Z run from earlier this afternoon, showing us that again, heavy snow expected to continue across Arkansas and Missouri. Of course, some sleet is going to be mixing in. Little Rock, Arkansas, not expected to get as much snow as originally thought because some of that sleet will mix in. And if you do switch over to sleet, that will cut down on your snowfall totals. The further north you are, drier air is going to cut down on some snowfall totals. So you really have to be kind of right in the middle if you want to see the higher totals. If you are going to get into that foot range, you have to be kind of in the middle. And so the storm track has mattered quite a bit. I will say our storm track has been just a little bit further to the south than what we thought it was going to be. So that, of course, has affected things quite a bit. This is 6 a.m. tomorrow. We're still going to have snow across Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Kansas. Heavy amounts of snow continuing through the morning hours tomorrow. So if anybody is planning on going to church tomorrow, if that hasn't already been canceled, there is a possibility that it may be canceled or you may have trouble getting there just because of those heavy snowfall rates and it being difficult for the road crews to keep up with that. Of course, we've got the severe weather threat, as we mentioned here, indicated by those yellows and oranges. We've got the ice threat continuing into Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana. Light snow lingering into the early afternoon hours tomorrow, according to the GFS. And then by the evening hours, all of this will clear out. A little bit of light snow over here in Colorado and Kansas. But other than that, things drying out quite significantly as we go into next week. And we'll kind of stop there for now. But this storm system is not going to stop there. It's going to continue into the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, as we showed you with those winter weather alerts. So this storm is going to be starting at here 6 a.m. on Sunday. So by tomorrow morning, we'll have heavy snow moving into DC, New York City expecting to get some snow. DC, the snowfall is going to be cut down just a little bit because we are going to switch over to some ice. So we've got some icing concerns across the DC metro area. New York City could see some icing late tomorrow night. Boston, Massachusetts, we could be looking at some very heavy snowfall rates. I would not be surprised if we had a few areas that picked up over 18 inches of snow across New England. So that could certainly get very interesting. And then snow expected to last in the Northeast all the way through Monday night. So maybe you plan on traveling tomorrow or after the storm clears. What about on Monday? Well, that's fine. But if you go in the Northeast, you may have some airport delays and some travel difficulties with that. So just keep that all in mind if you're flying out to the East Coast that they have not yet seen the storm. Of course, this is what I showed you yesterday. This was my final forecast for this winter storm. We had 4 to 7 inches here across kind of central Missouri, including Columbia, western. We had 6 to 10 across Nevada and Joplin, and then south of Interstate 44, a few areas I said would probably pick up anywhere from 9 to 12 inches. As of right now, I just measured here in Columbia, which you have to be really careful with where you're measuring. It needs to be at a spot where there hasn't been drifting or anything like that. So you have to be very careful because it is such a powdery snow. It blows around, it drifts a lot more than when you have a wet snow. So you have to be really careful with that. But I'm pretty sure that we have anywhere between about 2 and 2.5 inches of accumulation at this point in time here in Columbia. But again, the heaviest snowfall rates are expected to pick up later tonight. Nevada and Joplin sitting around that 2 to 4 inch range as well. So still got a ways to go before we hit these totals. Will we get this high? I still think we will. I understand that maybe the snow hasn't been coming down as hard as we originally thought it would at the beginning. But again, that was because we had to fight that drier air. And so now that the dry air is kind of moving out, we don't have as much drier air as we did this morning. And so humidity levels have increased quite a bit. If you've looked at those percentages, we're now sitting in the 80s. So that, of course, is going to help out the accumulation. So I think that our heaviest accumulation is going to occur within the next 12 hours. And so I think it's very well possible that we could still hit these totals, if not even exceed them. How much more snow is still to come? So if you were to go outside, measure the snow that you have right now on the ground, and you were to add this, that's what I think we'll end up with at the very end. Kansas City area, 1 to 3 inches. Not really a whole lot once you get north of Interstate 70. About 3 to 6 inches here across Nevada, Joplin, and into Columbia, since that line shifted a little bit north since that final forecast was made. We could have some isolated 8-inch amounts across the area. Again, this is on top of what we've already seen. It depends on where the heavy snowfall sets up. If that banding sets up, if you get under a band of heavy snow for 2 or 3 hours, you could very well see 8 inches just tonight. And so that, of course, would add up. And then 5 to 8 inches south of Interstate 44 with isolated 10-inch amounts plus, with some areas likely getting over a foot. Not very widespread, but a few isolated spots could certainly pick up a foot of snow out of this storm system. Then the story becomes the cold, of course. So sticking with that cold as we go into Monday morning, this will be our coldest night. We'll have wind chills getting into around the -15, -20 range, similar to what they were yesterday. Actual temperatures will be below zero, anywhere from 0 to 10 below zero expected across the state of Missouri. Things will warm up on Tuesday. Then we'll have another cold air mass that's going to move in the middle and late part of next week. Next weekend, it's expected to get cold. We're likely going to be back in the single digits for overnight lows next week. And so that means that all of the snow that's falling today and tonight and tomorrow, it's not going anywhere for any time soon. And then even if we look in the long range, we're expected to stay below average. Precipitation is expected to stay below average. So this will likely be our only big snowstorm that we get out of this particular round of weather, I guess you could say. And so that's the 6 to 10 day outlook. 8 to 14 days showing kind of near average temperatures across Missouri, as you'll see right there. Um, and even in the week 3 to 4, the 3 to 4 week outlook, we're even looking possibly at below average temperatures. So colder temperatures likely to stick around. I don't think it'll be this cold after this week, but certainly still dangerously cold temperatures expected. And that does include rather, cities further to our south, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, likely to see some very cold temperatures going into next weekend. So, of course, February 1st is on a Sunday, so this would be next Sunday. And next Monday is when we would be looking at that. Not this coming Monday, but the following Monday. All right. Well, I'm pretty sure that that about wraps things up here for tonight on GWP weather or on our GWP weather update for Saturday, January 24th. We will have one more update tomorrow, and then of course we'll be here for the weekly news on Monday, January 26th. And then after that, that is going to be the end of these live and pre-recorded updates. So I believe that is it for this evening. Everybody, stay safe, continue to drip the faucets, and make sure that you don't go outside too long in order to avoid that potential for frostbite. And if you do have to travel, stay safe on the roads.